Hello, my friends. Welcome to this episode about Miss Universe Philippines 2021 closed door interviews. So I love that we get to see these interviews. I think it gives such a perspective on how the pageant actually went. And it's just great for a lot of pageant contestants to be able to see what great interviews look like. If you would like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and then hit that notifications bell so you know when I release new episodes like this one. I'm gonna talk about these in a sort of particular order because interview is a very interesting thing for pageants, and I want to give you a little bit more perspective. For example, when I judge what I've seen happen behind closed doors, I'm actually going to be putting these interviews into groups because there's so many different ways you can interpret an interview, and I don't think it's cut and dry. It's really dependent on a judge and what they were feeling. So I'm going to give you some of my predictions for how I think things could potentially play out. The first set of interviews I'm going to talk about are ones that I feel like were solid. They were great. If we take these ladies' interview scores and we pair this with a good and a consistent score for swim and gown, I can see these women moving on to semifinals. Mirage, overall great interview. I wish she would have ended a little bit stronger. They were asking them a question about what would you add to cart from the Lazada app to give to Filipinas, and she talked about skincare, but I didn't feel like that was an answer she was incredibly passionate about. But the thing that stood out about her interview is that she talked about how she's experienced poverty, and you could feel her sincerity there, and it was a really real moment. Janella Joy, I was very happy and pleased. She spoke articulately, she was confident. The one thing I would have adjusted was to relax her hands in this interview. Sometimes that type of body language can make you look a little bit nervous to judges. I don't know if that's how judges are going to interpret it, but that's one way that could go. Laren was wonderful. This was what I would consider just a solid interview. There weren't any cringy moments, but also I didn't feel like there were any moments that really made me go like, wow, or felt like I really formed a deeper connection to her. But at the end, she did mention in her last answer about being confident and humble and how important that was. And that was the part that I was like, okay, I felt like that was a good ending to this interview. Jan, I wish I could have seen the full interview. It was hard for me hunting these things down online, but I will say that first of all, the yellow, fabulous on her. She was so well styled. She looked incredible. But I also want to talk about two of the answers that I did see from her. She said that she would give every Filipina a mirror so they could see their beauty and remind themselves about how beautiful that they are, and that beauty is only on the outside. It was a good message. The other answer that stuck out was when she was asked if she would eliminate poverty, environmental issues, or corruption in the government. And she said she would eliminate poverty because she would like to see a world where children could reach their full potential. And the way that she phrased it was great. Maria was so well styled. She looked beautiful, one of my favorite interview outfits. Now, I will say about the interview though, I felt like she was very self-assured when she spoke. She was confident, but once again, the reason I put this on the fence is just because I didn't feel that moment of connection or where she told us something a little bit deeper about herself. So I think that the communication skills were there, but will judges feel that connection with her? Time will tell. The next group of contestants I'm going to talk about are some that I think were surprising because they aren't necessarily fan favorites, but I think that these were pretty good interviews, and one of them in particular. As we know, interview is very important. So if you are struggling to stand out in interview, or you don't know exactly what makes you unique and what to share with the judges, then click the description below so you can find out more about the Rehearsed to Relatable course. Chella Grace had a really cute personality in her interview. That's what I liked about her. You could see that coming from her. Now, the one thing that concerned me is that during her answers, she would start to speed up. And when you speed up in an interview, it sometimes will come across as nerves, and that can hurt your score. So that's why I'm like, I wonder how judges are going to interpret this. Princess has not been talked about that much in the press. I don't see that much about her, but I will say I feel that she spoke very authentically here. It was a great interview. Kesha Pornam seemed a little bit nervous in this interview. I felt like I could feel that coming from her, which not the best thing for our pageant interviews. But I will say that when they asked her first question, what is a lesson that you learned this week? She talked about the importance of checking in with the other contestants because they're in this bubble right now. And I think that's so true because these women are being so scrutinized, check in on one another. I thought that was beautiful. It was a great start to her interview. They asked her the question, if beauty is in the eye of the beholder, in whose eyes are you beautiful? And her answer was pretty cute because she talked about her mom. She said, though, that her mom is her #1 fan and always tells her that she's beautiful. And I was like, okay, well, that's sweet. Grace, I felt like was a surprise as well because we don't hear that much about her. I've talked about her in some of my past episodes, but what I really liked about her interview right from the beginning, it felt like she was talking to a friend. It felt conversational, like she let you in. She also shared that she grew up without a father and that because of that she's been independent, but realizes how important it is in this environment to be very independent, doing your own hair, makeup, motivating yourself, all those great things. And I agree, it's a great quality of a title holder. Now, at the end, when they asked her what she would give the Filipinas, she said she would add food to cart because right now, especially, there's so many people who are experiencing food insecurities. And so I was like, that's a really real, honest answer. And I thought that it was great. And that was one of the things that to me stood out in this one. Michelle, if there were an award for the most eloquent speaker, I think she wins that here for interview. So a lot of people were talking about her online, and I think that her communication skills are top notch. Now, the thing I want people to think about too, though, is I felt like although the communication skills were there, where was like the personality? Although you can be eloquent and an excellent communicator, it doesn't always mean that you are going to appeal to a judge. So the thing I wanted to see more of in this interview was her personality. You want to be able to share with the judges who your friends and your family love. And I think there could have been more of that here. So I am curious how this is going to play out for the judges. But let me know what your opinion of this one was. The next group of contestants are the group that to me were some of my personal favorites that if I were judging would get great scores regardless. And here's the power of a great interview score. When you give a good interview score to a contestant, when you give one of your top interview scores, what you're essentially doing for them is shielding them from a lower score in swim or gown. So if they come out for swim, gown, or any other competition and you don't love them there, or not as much, that means that that interview score, because it's equally or heavily weighted, is going to still keep them afloat and could potentially move them forward. And I think that the importance of that is that because many judges recognize that we might not love a contestant's walk or we might not love her gown, but those communication skills are so important for her interactions with people throughout her reign. Outfits can be changed, but it's really difficult to find a contestant or a title holder who has natural communication abilities. It feels like you would have a lot longer ways to go to improve communication skills versus the time spent for walking lessons or how easy it would be to change her hair, makeup, or wardrobe. Here are some of my top scores. Roseanne spoke powerfully in her interview. You can see her maturity here. One thing she mentioned when she talked about what she learned throughout the week was that she's capable. And that was such a confident statement. Kind of reminds me of when Rabia was talking about being a phenomenal woman last year. That kind of vibe. So I really liked that. I think that it's a great point because you need to be very ready and capable of taking criticism when you're a title holder at this level. So you have to know that you're capable of the job and not be so concerned with people and what they're saying on the outside. So I think that this is a really, really great interview. I think it's a tough year though, so we will see how this plays out. Katrina, solid interview. She looked beautiful. She really reeled everything in. I was happy to see that. I felt that she wasn't over the top in this interview. I talked about my concern with that in past episodes, but this was perfect. It just wasn't too much. And at the end, she talked about gifting affirmation cards to people and how she used them in the past. I just thought that this was such a great example of an interview. Just like an easy pass to the semifinals, at least. Victoria's answers in her interview were a little bit short. That surprised me. I wish she would have actually gone into depth a little bit more. But she is an excellent communicator, and that is what her advantage is here. She just spoke so well. You can see how easy it was for her in the interview. And honestly, if she was nervous, if she did feel pressured, you could not see it. But that is an important skill. That is something that would be useful at Miss Universe, and that's why this interview for me was so great. Maureen, first of all, looked great. Loved the outfit. I talked about that in another episode. But to me, she just reminds me of a queen. The way that she carries herself, how pleasant she was in the interview. She looked very at ease. And if they were to choose her, I think that she would be an excellent representative of the Philippines. Kisses, no surprise here for me. She had one of my favorite interviews. I will say that a lot of people have doubted her. I've talked about this in other episodes, but she started standing out to me when I got to hear her speak. And one of her strengths is her ability to convey emotion when she's answering her questions. And that is something powerful because it can move people. She also had little sprinkles of personal touches and personality in there as well. Jasmine showed so much personality. Also, I still just can't get over how gorgeous she is. The face, right? Just her face. So aside from my personal bias about that, I liked the personality. I liked the poise in this. I liked the way that she presented her answers. But one of my favorite answers is when they asked her the beauty in the eye of the beholder question. And first she kind of giggled and she said, well, I'm beautiful in my mother's eyes. And then, but then she took the answer and actually went a little bit deeper and into more meaning. And then she said, I am beautiful in the eyes of anyone who can see past the physical. Whoa, what a statement that is, especially for such a beautiful woman. That was just so well said and beautiful and heartfelt to me. You could quote that. That was lovely. Steffi loved the interview look. She's beautiful, she's fresh. But one thing that I love about this interview is I felt that she was truly present. She didn't seem to be overcome by nerves. She didn't seem to share anything that felt forced or rehearsed in her interview. She personalized her answer at the end. And this was the type of interview that I feel like definitely sends you through to a semifinal. And if you can remain consistent, that you could win. So this interview for me would have been one of the highest scoring interviews. And I could just see so much potential in her because of her charm, her charisma. In this, she is effortless. Those are my thoughts on the personal interviews. Like I said, I grouped these ladies into different groups because I feel like this could go a number of different ways. I'm sharing with you, of course, my personal favorites, but also interviews that I feel like could really shake things up. And the interviews would be the reason somebody is a dark horse. So I kind of wanted to show the different sides that I think, or the different ways this could go. So let me know what you think. Who were your favorite contestants for this year's competition, and how do you think this is all going to turn out? Who's going to be representing the Philippines at Miss Universe in December? Thank you for watching this episode. I hope that you chose to subscribe and that you'll share this with your friends, and that I can see you next time.